Howdy y'all, I am Ice Cold, and although the Kendrick v Drake beef has eclipsed this whole debate on Twitter for the last week, Kendrick is winning by the way, this is still important to talk about because while my stance on the war between Hamas and Israel is and always has been supportive of the innocent civilians on both sides who are being killed, the vast majority of which are from the Gaza side, so when I say I support Palestine, this is what I mean, and there's many out there, mostly in my generation, who agree with me. But there is a stark contrast between those of us who believe in reformation of the government and those of us who want to tear it down. I won't be talking too much about Israel or Palestine themselves in this video since I've already given my stance on the war itself back in MCSG number 3, and this is just me analyzing what's been going on here at home. Minus this tweet, of course. And hey, maybe I'm chronically online and that's why I even know so much about the revolutionary versus reformist divide on the side supportive of Palestine. As many of y'all have probably seen by this point, protests have erupted all over college campuses nationwide, and these protests are in support of Palestine, but the fact of the matter is, some of them are giving the pro-Palestine side a bad look. If you're pro-Palestine, you're anti-Zionist because Zionism is the belief that there should be a Jewish national state established where Palestine currently stands. Zionists and their supporters have tried to brand anti-Zionism as anti-Semitism, in other words, accusing Palestine supporters of hating Jews just because they're Jewish. I said in my third MCSG video that this was the most ass-backwards belief I've seen many of them have, and I stand by that. So, the protests. Many of them simply want to see change with how the Biden administration has handled the war in the Middle East, but a few bad apples have completely lost the plot and started with super revolutionary rhetoric that just makes the rest of us who support the cause look bad. It is an important cause, but we have to look rational for it to get us anywhere, you know what I'm saying? To state my own position early into the video, I am a reformist. I believe that there is room for improvement within our own government, and President Biden isn't hopeless on this issue. There needs to be a lot of push to really make anything happen, and for Biden's whole lifetime pretty much, there's been this whole thing where it's like Jews should have a right to exist and have their own religious state, be in Israel, and while I could go on about the religious state bit, I'm sure everyone watching agrees that, yes, Jews should have a right to exist. I don't think there's anybody that really disagrees with that. There's a lot of conditioning to be undone on the president's part, but I think out of the two viable candidates for this election, the guy that we've got right now is much more prone to doing more for Gaza.
You have to get the job done. It's a horrible job to do, but they have to respond when they do, when there's an attack. A sneak attack like on October 7th that's so violent and such hatred, you have to clean it out. You have to clean out the cancer, and you have to let them do their job. And frankly, it has to be done fast because this is not sustainable for anybody. The job has to be done. It has to be done fast. The United States has to get courage, and the United States has to speak up. Nobody knows where the U.S. stands right now. I think Biden is not on the side of Israel. And he's making a tremendous mistake. You have to clean up the terror that we witnessed on October 7th.
I don't want to shame any pro-Palestinian people for not wanting to vote for Biden, but I do wish I had the power to psychically transmit that clip to everyone's brains once a week. Here's a list of what Biden's already done. None of this is stuff that the guy you just heard talking would ever even think of doing. And yet, revolutionaries on social media and revolutionaries participating in protests on college campuses either don't know or don't care. And everyone wishes that we'd stop sending aid to Israel, but we've got a contractual obligation to help defend our allies. If it were me, I wouldn't consider Israel's current regime to be anywhere close to the kinds of people I'd want our country to be friendly with, but that contract is why we have to keep sending aid their way, and it's more complicated than just terminating the contract all of a sudden. A lot of revolutionaries don't really understand this. They'd rather direct their hatred at people like Biden or AOC or whoever, even though they can't do anything to reverse that contract just on a whim. Not to mention Israel stands against Iran, which was a whole thing, but America also stands against Iran, so it's a hell of a lot more complicated than most really realize. Another thing that a lot of revolutionaries are doing is protest voting or refusing to vote for Biden or Trump. You know, the only two people who have any shot at being in the Oval Office come January. Instead, they are claiming that Biden and Trump are the same thing, which ends up being a funny example of horseshoe theory, and they're either going to vote for randoms like RFK Jr. or Cornel West or Jill Stein, none of which will break even 3% of the vote nationwide, or just straight up not voting at all. This is a tweet that I like a lot, and it's honestly pretty funny how this makes revolutionaries fume. A lot of them are really just what's called slacktivists, saying what they say just to say it without actually doing anything. And the protesters you see all in the news and that barely clear this bar, and it's been cringeworthy seeing what some of the people on my side of the overall cause have been saying, because it makes the rest of us look crazy for being pro-Palestine. The conflict should end. These are my positions on everything. And it really does all boil down to war is bad, peace is good, but you know how it goes. What's inevitably going to happen with a lot of revolutionaries is, even though they never passed a government or civics class in high school, eventually it's going to occur to them, once they remember previous elections like 2016, that Cornel West is not going to beat Joe Biden and Donald Trump at the same time. And if anything, West receiving even 3% more of the vote than he normally would in a lot of swing states will hand the election right over to Donald Trump, and then we'll get to hear their incessant complaining for another 4 years like we did from 2017 to 2021, among all of the other stuff that'll happen. Think Muslim bans, national abortion ban, potentially expanding the Supreme Court majority to 7-2, who would then go about repealing Burgess v. Hodges, gay marriage, Lawrence v. Texas, privacy, very important privacy case, Griswold v. Connecticut, contraceptives, that type of deal, and plenty more. Now, a lot of the people saying they want to vote for Cornel West or Jill Stein do share an ideology with Joe Biden. Like, the guy is very progressive, and stuff like the Inflation Reduction Act has been some of the most progressive legislation signed into law in recent history. But the less intelligent revolutionaries, who won't wake up eventually, have been known to say that they'd accept a Trump victory in subsequent 4 years if it meant the Democrats experienced a punishing defeat. They want this defeat to then get the Democratic Party to swing further left and start to adopt their ideologies in order to win them back to their voting base, further polarizing the country. Here's the problem with that logic. It already happened. In 2016, Republican Donald Trump beat Democrat Hillary Clinton in that year's presidential election via the Electoral College. Die-hard Bernie Sanders supporters in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania have been getting the blame for doing exactly what I've described these revolutionaries have been thinking about doing. And guess what happened? The Supreme Court had its first opportunity in 25 years to finally tilt away from a 5-4 conservative majority with the death of hardline conservative Justice Antonin Scalia in early 2016. Senate Republicans stalled out President Obama's attempts to replace him with Merrick Garland, but had Hillary Clinton not lost that November, she could have replaced Scalia with someone either nonpartisan or, leaning a bit more liberal. Personally, I'm fed up with how politicized the court has become, and has been since around 2000, but you get the idea. Anyway, Trump appoints hardline conservative Neil Gorsuch in 2017, and since the president in office shared an ideology with Justice Anthony Kennedy, he was able to retire then in 2018. Trump then appointed Brett Kavanaugh to replace Justice Kennedy, and, Kavanaugh was commonly known for the whole rape scandal playing out during his Senate hearings, so the court was still 5-4, meaning they couldn't reliably start doing stuff like reversing Roe versus Wade, the court case that protected abortion rights. Along comes the fall of 2020, and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, at age 87, dies of cancer. In a move that surprised absolutely no one, Trump appointed hardline conservative Amy Coney Barrett to the court. And then, around 2 years later, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization happened, and the 3 Trump appointees plus the other 3 conservative justices voted to overturn the protections put in place by Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood of Southern Pennsylvania versus Casey. They could not have reliably done this with Kennedy and Ginsburg on the court. Anyway, sorry, that was a whole tangent. My fault for going on about that for so long. But the bottom line, Hillary Clinton lost, and for the next couple of decades, we're gonna be wondering if condoms or abortion pills are gonna become illegal all of a sudden. The point of that was to tell any of y'all in swing states thinking about voting for Kanye or whoever because Biden bad, that elections have consequences. You know that 1864 draconian abortion law in Arizona that existed 50 years before it even became a state, the Arizona Republicans just dredged out of their ass and instituted? Well, their governor, who won by less than 1 percentage point, just overturned it. And of course, it didn't even have to come to that if Clinton had won in 2016, but you get the picture. If you are a left-leaning individual in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, or Nevada, and you are thinking about voting for Jill Stein or not voting at all this November, that whole tangent I just went off on will happen again, but for gay marriage, contraceptives, important privacies, and plenty more, I guarantee you. Like, this is an election that everybody needs to not sit out, but at the same time, don't waste your vote. Ultimately, I can't force you to vote for whoever, but part of why reformists clown on revolutionaries so much is because most revolutionaries make decisions without thinking them through. If many of them thought for more than 10 seconds about rising up against the United States government for any reason, they understand it's never going to happen logistically, and they would seek other forms of bringing about change. Which is why a lot of the protesters on these college campuses, they've been doing a good thing. You know, they've been saying like bring peace to Gaza and that type of deal, which is good. But it's the revolutionary rhetoric, like tear down the government, erase the ruling class. It's like that's what'll get you clowned on. It's like you could be right about all that, but how are you going to make it happen? Firebombing a Walmart? But back to the protests for a moment. The police response from a number of cities, like for Columbia and then especially the University of Texas at Austin, has been appalling. A good 99% of them condemn Hamas just as much as Israel, and arresting them for protesting peacefully is a very bad look for these police departments. And I know I'm just a guy with 1,800 subs talking to his computer screen, but these arrests need to stop. And everyone protesting the Biden administration's response to the war in the Middle East peacefully should be allowed to do so, revolutionary or not, because that's in the First Amendment. You should be allowed to protest the actions of your government. That said, again, multiple things can be true at once. Some protesters think Biden is sending individual city police departments to arrest people. I think I'm going to let y'all figure that one out. To be honest, I don't know how to feel about my generation making hating Biden the quote-unquote cool thing to do. I mean, maybe we just don't like authority, but it is what it is. And I'm not a fan for my own reasons, but he's done some commendable stuff while he's been in office, as well as having not tried to set social progress back a ton, which I can respect enough. Anyway, I might just be fired up over all this. I don't know. I'm just a simple pragmatist who wants to see progress. I just have a different way of going about it compared to a lot of the people you see on the news and on social media. For some of y'all, this video will affirm what you already felt about some people being way too radical on social media and they're making fools of themselves. For others, this will rile y'all up and it might make y'all lose respect for me, but oh well. I don't think I'm changing any minds with this video. I just want to help more people stay grounded when it comes to this stuff and help push for a more peaceful world and, of course, getting there without firebombing any Walmarts. As always, I'm open to a dialogue in the comments about this, and again, I wholeheartedly support a ceasefire and the release of the hostages on both ends, and I am pro-innocent civilians rather than pro either government. So that is going to wrap up my thoughts on this whole revolutionary versus reformist type divide, debate, whatever you want to call it. And like, again, it's like, I know I'm saying this for like the third time in this video, but the conflict is very important. We just need to not act the fool at home about it. It's like firebombing a Walmart in like Nebraska or whatever is not going to get Israel or Hamas to stand down. It just isn't. And yeah, some of these revolutionaries think that is what's going to happen. You get the idea. We could have a better president, but it's not either of the two main guys, I promise. But I do think that there is some room for push with Biden, whereas with Trump, I mean, I showed y'all that clip about him saying we need to clear out the cancer, that type of deal. Things could be better, but they could also be a hell of a lot worse. And what's going on here at home in the United States is very important. very, very important. And I think everybody watching this, if you can vote, you should. But again, be sure not to waste that vote. Understand what you value, and then vote accordingly for the one out of the two guys who will, match your ideology more. That's what elections are all about. You vote for the person who will best represent your interests. That can also win. So that's kind of how it is. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I've been Ice Gold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave like 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more, and I will see y'all later.